Chapter 9, Sensory Systems. Sensory receptors are specialized structures to detect and respond to changes either in the internal or external environment. Sensory receptors respond by generating electrochemical messages. If a stimulus, a change in the internal or external environment, is strong enough, then action potentials are conducted to the brain. Sensory receptors respond best to one form of energy. The term sensation refers to the awareness of a stimulus. How that sensation is experienced, such as sight or sound, depends on which part of the brain receives the specific impulses. Perception, on the other hand, is the conscious awareness of sensations. The understanding of the stimulus occurs when the cerebral cortex integrates that sensory input. In other words, the brain interprets a banana after photoreceptors are activated. Pardon me. In this example, step 1, the sensory receptor detects the stimulus of a light from the external environment. Via the photoreceptors, the sensory neurons conduct the nerve impulse to the spinal cord and then to the brain, or directly to the brain. The brain interprets that information from the sensory receptor, and then interpretation information is the perception or understanding of the specific stimulation. Sensory adaptation is a term used to describe when sensory receptors stop responding, although continuously stimulated. The sensory adaptation leads to a decrease in the awareness of a specific stimulus, such as if you've ever walked into a musty antique store and you notice that musty smell, but after you've been in there a while, you begin to adapt to that. Sensory adaptation varies among various receptors. Pressure and touch receptors adapt quickly, such as we aren't aware of the clothing on our skin, whereas other receptors, such as those in the muscles and joints that report on body position, never adapt. The body contains many different types of specialized receptors. Mechanoreceptors are responsible for the sensation of touch, pressure, hearing, and equilibrium. Thermoreceptors for the sense of temperature. Photoreceptors for light intensity. Chemoreceptors for chemicals. Pain receptors respond to strong stimuli resulting from physical or chemical damage. Chemicals are released by damaged tissue. Pain receptors are also stimulated by physical changes such as swelling of tissue. Sometimes pain receptors are classified with chemoreceptors because they respond to chemicals, and sometimes with mechanoreceptors because they are stimulated by physical changes, such as swelling. The general senses arise from receptors in the skin, muscle, joints, bones, and internal organs. These general senses include touch, vibration, pressure, temperature, body and limb position, and pain. We're typically not aware of the general senses, but they are still important because they provide information about our body position and also help to keep our internal body conditions within the optimal limits, within homeostasis. Special senses, on the other hand, are the ones that we rely on for the special senses to perceive the world, for vision, for hearing and equilibrium, olfaction, smell, the sense that most easily brings up emotional memories. Pardon me, the olfactory bulb, which is going to lead directly into the limbic system, which in Chapter 8 was the part of the brain that's responsible for our emotions. Receptors for the special senses are located often in the head, often within specific structures. Receptors may be either free nerve endings or encapsulated nerve endings. These are distributed throughout the body. Free nerve endings are the tips of the dendrites of sensory neurons, whereas encapsulated nerve endings are those in which a connective tissue encloses and protects the tips of the dendrites of sensory neurons. And we'll look at the various types, the free nerve endings, and the encapsulated in the future slides. Touch, pressure, and vibration rely on mechanoreceptors. These respond to stimuli that stretch, compress, or twist their membrane. And there's several different types of mechanoreceptors that occur within the skin. The Merkel disc are free nerve endings that end on Merkel cells and detect light touch, whereas the Meissner's corpuscles are encapsulated nerve endings and tell us where we've been touched. The Meissner's corpuscles are common on hairless areas such as lips, nipples, fingertips. Mechanoreceptors in the skin that detect pressure is the Pacinian corpuscles, or free nerve endings that sense when pressure is first applied, whereas the Ruffini are encapsulated nerve endings that respond to continuous pressure. Temperature change. Thermoreceptors respond to changes in temperature. These are widely distributed throughout the body. These are especially numerous around the lips and the mouth. These are specialized free nerve endings located just below the surface of the skin. One thermoreceptor responds to warmth, another type responds to cold, and these adapt quickly. The sensation of hot and cold fade rapidly. We've experienced this from bath water, where it was too hot maybe once we got in, but our body quickly adapted to that. Body and limb position are continuously monitored by the brain via muscle spindles, which are specialized muscle fibers wrapped in sensory nerve endings that monitor the length of skeleton muscles, and from the Golgi tendon organs, which are highly branched nerve fibers found in tendons. These measure the muscle tension, or the degree, and these receive information from the inner ear. Pain is important in that it warns the body, keeping it from further injury. Pain occurs from free nerve endings found in all tissues of the body. Damaged tissue releases chemicals that alert free nerve endings. Aspirin and ibuprofen interfere with the production of the released chemicals, thus reducing pain. Referred pain is a term used to describe pain that's felt somewhere besides the site of the injury. This is common to damage to the internal organs, such as in a heart attack where pain is felt in the left arm. The reason for the referred pain is because the sensory neuron from the internal organ and those of the associated skin communicate with neurons to the spinal cord. Because the same neuron, the brain interprets that as coming from possibly the arm instead of the pain from the heart. The wall of the eyeball has 3 layers. The outermost layer containing the sclera and the cornea, the middle layer containing the coronoid, the ciliary body, and the iris, and the innermost layer of the retina. The outer layer of the eye is tough and fibrous. The sclera is the white of the eye that protects and shapes the eye and serves as the attachment site from the eye muscles. The cornea is the area that bulges slightly outward. It's the transparent area at the front of the eye, allowing light to enter. The middle layer is vascular, meaning that it has blood vessels. The coronoid contains the blood vessels that supply the eye tissue with nutrients and oxygen and contain melanin, which helps to absorb the light reflected from the retina. The ciliary body, or also known as the ciliary muscle, is a muscular ring formed by the coronoid toward the front of the eye and helps to hold the lens in place and change its shape. The ciliary body or ciliary muscle is important for focusing light on the light-sensitive layer of the eye. The iris is the muscular part of the coronoid in front of the ciliary body that helps to regulate the pupil size. It's the colored portion of the eye. By regulating the pupil size, this also regulates the amount of light that enters the eye. The pupil is the opening in the center of the eye, allowing light to enter the eye and reach the retina. The action is that it dilates in dim light and constricts in bright light. The pupil size can also be affected by emotions, such as dilate when frightened or focused on something of interest, or constricted when bored. Candlelight often creates a romance because the dilated pupils makes the individuals appear more attentive and also more interested. The innermost layer contains the photoreceptors. The retina. The photoreceptors respond to light by generating electrical chemicals. There's approximately 250 million photoreceptors. There's two types of photoreceptors. There's the rods and the cones. The rods are responsible for black and white vision. The cones are responsible for color. The fovea is a region of the retina with the greatest concentration of rods and cones. Objects are focused on this area in the retina for sharp vision.